Hello and welcome to Geometry with Mr. Clausen. Today we're going to start the first activity of our blueprint project, our BPP project. And not to be confused with PPB, I know a lot of the acronyms look a little bit similar. But what this video is going to go over is how to do the homework assignment for BPP1. And so if we're doing this assignment online or this class online, or you missed the day of class where we went over the activity that's explained in the instructions here, this video will get you everything that you need so that you can go complete the homework assignment and keep pace with what we're doing in this class. So the main point is that we're going to look at how to make scale drawings. And so you should have this worksheet, and what is explained in the worksheet is that, you know, we can get together in groups of 3 or 4 to make measurements of an assigned floor plan. In class, what we would typically do is there would be these floor plans taped on the floor, and then you would draw a scaled model of the floor plan that was taped down in class. And the reason that we explore this is that typically, you know, you may look at plans for bathrooms and that type of thing, as is indicated on here, but we don't go and draw out whole houses on life-size tarps. We don't do everything one-to-one. You would have to, you know, buy these gigantic tarps with like the floor plan and everything on them and spread it all out, and it just wouldn't be practical. So what we can do is we can put whole houses on things like a piece of graph paper like this. And typically what it'll look like for a bathroom or a kitchen, for example, is if you have 1/4-inch grid paper, you can actually get plans like this just from the internet. But what typically a plan will look like is you will have your walls, you'll have a door, and they'll draw typical 5-foot by 8-foot bathrooms in scales like this. And as you can see is that each square here is a 1/4-inch square, so each square represents 1 square foot. So 1/4-inch by 1/4-inch is 1 foot by 1 foot. And that is the scale factor that is being used for this. And what this scale factor involves is that if you think about it, and if 4 1/4 inches go into 1 inch, then there are 12 inches that go into 1 foot. And so what that means is if you multiply the 4 and the 12, that 1 foot is 48 times bigger than 1/4 inch. And so the scales are a 48-to-1 scale. And what we will be exploring in this course is writing blueprints of various things in this scale factor, this 1 foot to 1/4-inch scale, or this 48-to-1 scale. All right, they're both the same thing. And so what we would normally do in class is that we would, you know, have these floor plans taped on the floor of various bathrooms and kitchens, and then we would trace it out on a piece of graph paper. And what we're going to do is, if you missed the class or we're doing this online, is instead of submitting this floor plan as a group, you'll do it individually. And we will just focus primarily on the homework assignment, which assesses your skill and how to do this. And what you will do for the homework assignment is that you'll measure a room at home. It needs to be a kitchen or a full bathroom. All right, so it needs to be a room that's actually got some different things in it. And then what you will do is you will make a 1/4-inch scale drawing of the floor plan on 1/4-inch graph paper. In your drawing, make sure to write down real-world dimensions of a room and include the thickness of walls. So 4 inches for interior, 6 inches for exterior, and then you'll need to write your full name on it for acceptance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through this entire process with you and how you would go about this activity. So a few things that you will need. You will need some 1/4-inch grid paper. This should be provided to you in a packet or something you should have gotten from school. You will need a tape measure, so just a standard dandy tape measure so you can measure the dimensions of your room. You will need a ruler like moi, all right, just a standard inch ruler is something that you will need. And then obviously a pencil is of particular use. And then the last thing, if you have gotten it, is grab your architectural template. So this will be something that each of you should have, and is a useful tool that we'll be exploring how to use throughout this course. So once you acquire these things, you can actually go and start measuring the room that you're going to analyze, whether it's a kitchen or your bathroom. It has to be a full bath. So a full bath is just a bathroom that's got a toilet, a sink, and a bathtub or shower tub combination, depending on what you have in your home. And so what I chose to do is I chose to do my kitchen as an example. And so what I would do is grab a piece of paper and then just start taking some measurements down and trying to figure out where things are. Now, my kitchen, it's a little bit larger, and I did a remodel of it recently. And so what I did is I tried to draw out as many different things as I possibly could so that I could measure it and draw it out onto my graph paper as accurately as possible. This is not to scale. This is just me doodling down notes so that we can see some basic information. So for example, you need to know the dimensions of your room, the interior dimensions of your room. And so that's what this value is here. And so what I found is that my kitchen is 15 feet 7 inches wide and 13 feet 1 inches long or tall, or however you want to describe that. And then from that point, obviously I want you to draw a little bit more than just a box in your room. But this is what we need to get started here in terms of drawing this out. So before I go any further, I'm going to draw the box that this would represent, so that once we get that interior dimension figured out, we can figure out where other things go, whether it's a sink or your bed, or well, you're not doing a bedroom, but a toilet and those type of things. And so what this is typically going to look like is, you know, we can take our graph paper. So we'll write Mr. Clausen. All right, make sure you put your full name on it. All right, and what I'm going to do here is, like I said, we have a 15-foot 7-inch wide kitchen. And so one of the nice things that you're going to be able to experience throughout this course on a pretty regular basis, or through this project, is that each one of these squares will represent 1 square foot of your kitchen. So if the kitchen is 15 foot 7 inches wide, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to mark the spot here, and every inch will represent 4 feet. So if we draw this out, 4 feet, 8 feet, 12 feet at 3 inches. And then we'll have 13, 14, 15. And then 7 inches is a little over a half a foot. So I'm just going to go a little past that extra 1/8 of an inch. All right. And really what I'm looking for accuracy is within a 1/16 of an inch for most of your drawings and those type of things. And so I'm going to draw that, and that's going to be my scale drawing. And when you're doing this, what is a good habit to get into is actually indicating what the lengths of these various drawings are. So for example, you know, if you go and you want to mark this, generally you would go draw like maybe a little lighter faded line. All right, and on that line, you know, we can just make a mark here, and we can make a mark here, right? And or you can do an arrow if you like that a little bit better. And let's just indicate. I bet you can't even see that. I can barely even see that. I was trying to draw it real light there. But we're just going to go and draw this out, and then just say that this is the 15 foot 7 inches. And actually, if you want, we probably could do that on the outside of the line there, just to make that a little bit easier. But make sure you write down those real world dimensions as you're going through this, and we're practicing making these scale drawings, because I want to be able to go and look at that and assess kind of how that's going. So we know that it's 15 foot 7 inches wide. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my drawing here, and I notice that the length, or the height here, is 13 foot 1 inches. So that should be 13/4 inches plus a tiny weeny little bit. And so what I'm going to do is take my ruler one more time, and 3 inches would be 12 feet. All right, and then we're going to add just a little bit onto the end. And what's really nice about using graph paper is it's really easy to tell whether your lines are perpendicular or not, because you can just look at the ruler and see how it spans on the paper. So I'm just going to adjust that a little bit until it looks parallel with the lines. That's something that as we get further into these blueprint projects, you will need to be more precise about. All your lines should be perpendicular and parallel and those type of things, assuming they should be. And we're going to draw this line here. All right, and again, we're going just a hair past this line here because it's that 1 inch again, within a 1/16 of an inch. So keep in mind that a 1/16 of an inch to the 48:1 scale is 3 inches. So you have a little bit of play with the dimensions I'm giving you, but that should be helpful as you're going through that. So let's go and just draw out the line here. So I'm just going to include the real world dimensions here. This is what I mean by real world dimensions, is just include all this information here. Remember that 1 tick mark or just a your semicolon and your apostrophe and those type of things, or quotation mark and apostrophe. The single tick is a foot and the double tick is inches. And so now that we have our height and our width figured out, we can just go and draw out the rest of the box here. So I'm going to go and finish this guy out. And it goes to this line. Oop. Ruler just moved just a smidge. Make sure you press firmly and draw again if necessary to kind of straighten out that line. We will kind of be filling in the walls, so this is part of the reason I usually do interior first. Just get that all nice and drawn out. And then I'm going to draw this last side here. And we're going to draw all this out right here. Boom. And what this does now is, as you can see, I didn't draw my kitchen quite the scale. I just, like I said, I drew this rectangular box so that I could get an idea where everything is. And now what I have is the general interior shell of my kitchen. So when you're going through this assignment, you know, I would go take a tape measure, take your notes, and then kind of map everything out afterwards. Or, you know, if you can have a whole kitchen to yourself and you're not going to drive anybody crazy, you know, you could carefully just go and measure things as you're going through. And so now, once you get the shell of your kitchen done, what we can do is start drawing things in like cabinets and whatnot, because that's probably where we're going to want to start in this particular situation. So again, I accidentally drew this 14 foot 1 inch. All right, so if you make that mistake, just go. We're just gonna cut a foot off. Easy enough fix. Oh, and by the way, I would really highly recommend using a pencil when you're doing this, so that if you just did what I did, it is super easy to fix. Don't use a pen and start over with this over and over again. This is definitely the type of work that should be done with a pencil. Okay, so now we have our, just double checking my measurements again, 15, so 12, 13, 14, 15, and a little over 6 inches, so 15 foot 7. And then, let's see, 12, 13, and a little over, so that's our 13 foot 1. All right, so now we have our just basic shell of our kitchen, or my kitchen, I should say. And so now what I'm going to do is start looking at some of the things that I measured in my kitchen as I was going and doing this. And one of the things is that my countertops were 24 inches deep. And if you're ever wondering what the typical dimensions of things are, I will point out that if you have this packet, that there are some nice general sizes here. So, you know, we have some of these different dimensions, interior doors, exterior doors, and a lot of these things will be present in here. I'll just share with you that countertops are generally 24 inches deep. And that's what mine were in this particular situation. So what I'm going to do is that you can see with my kitchen that, you know, the countertops kind of go wrap around here. So we're just going to go and start drawing in some of the countertops that are there. And again, since this is the interior wall, okay, it should be 2 squares deep. So that should be really a nice situation there. Go and draw this out. Just draw myself a line there. I have a pantry in the corner, so that's actually exactly 5 feet out to where the wall is outside. And so I'm just going to actually go and count at 7 inches here and go 1/4 inch, 2, 3, 4, 5 1/4 inches. And that wall is 2 foot 5 inches. So that's almost 2.5 squares. Okay. All right, so that's one of the walls of my pantry. Okay, so this line here, it's a little over 2 lines long, not quite 2.5. All right, and that's my 2 foot wide for the one wall of my pantry. And all I'm trying to do right now is draw out all the countertops for my kitchen here. So going, all right. So this is countertop here. I have a pantry cabinet. And I'll just label that. Got a pantry cabinet right there. And then I got base cabinets going around. Most of it there. And I'm going to just kind of start working my way really from left to right of this room, kind of filling things in. So in the directionality you choose to go is fine. You know, you just want to include a lot of the main things if you're doing a kitchen especially. So like a sink, my sink starts 5 foot 1 inch from the one wall there. So we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares and then a little bit. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a line there representing kind of where that starts. And some of the things that I'm going to show you here is that, you know, you have things like templates on this architectural piece that I have here. So that's one of the things I want to show you here is that, you know, most sinks are about 32 inches in width. So that's, you know, about right to there. So that's actually be about right there. And this is what I measured from my kitchen, is that it was about 32 inches. What the template will tell you is that a typical kitchen sink is 21 inches by 32 inches, or at least that's what this template's for. And since that's what my kitchen is, that's what we're going to use. And so as you're going through this, I'm going to encourage you guys to use this template, especially if you're doing a kitchen. You know, go through this. There is stuff for like a bathroom that's like the 21 through 24 and lavatories and those type of things. So you have all these different sink styles, all these different type of openings, and so you can use the one that best represents your room. But what's really nice about these templates is, like, you know I have my sink here, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to draw in the pieces for this. So I'm going to go, and what you'll see is there's the big opening here. That's for the actual sink part. So make sure you're holding down your template firmly. And I'm going to draw my 2 sides of my sink here real quick. And then you can take the other part, and you can see that the outline's there. You can match it over the top. And you can now put in the drains in your sink. And, you know, if you want to put a faucet on there, like, I wouldn't stop you. You know, just go and put a little... and put that on there if you want. And now I have drawn a really nice template for my sink. I got other countertop going around here, and so now I'm going to just kind of keep going along my plan and seeing where other things are at. So if I go along the countertop here, I see I have my 2 feet of countertop, plus I have a 3-foot wide cabinet here, so 5 feet from here to here is where my stove starts. Okay, and this is the type of stuff that I want you to just start practicing with this. You know, get used to using a tape measure, measuring these things, and then translating that so you can see how this scale works. And so at 5 feet, we're right here. And we're going to go and we're going to draw this out right there. And your stove, if I'm not mistaken, is there a stove? There is a stove. It's called a range. A range is another name for a stove. Hopefully you can kind of see that there. And the stove will actually protrude out slightly. So we'll go. And actually, we'll list this out. Now, my stove is a 30-inch stove. So what you'll see is 24, 26. So 30 inches would be 2'6". So it goes to about right there. And I just, you know, it's a 24-inch stove. It sticks out about the same as the countertop here. And so I have this all drawn out. I have my other 3-foot cabinet here now. And generally what I do for a stove is I go and I just use some circles. So generally, you know, it's like, if you look at my stove, you know, I have a nice, actually maybe I got a big burner there. You can make them all the same size. I'm flexible as far as that goes. You know, maybe you got a big one over there. I'm just trying to make this as similar to my kitchen as possible. And so, you know, those are relatively the burners on my stove. So now I got a sink, I got a stove, and now I've hit the pantry. And this is the outside of my pantry wall. And now I'm going to start drawing in the pantry. So here I see that I'm 5 feet this way with my pantry, and I'm 4'5" this way to the outside part of my wall. So 4'5" is almost 4.5 inches. So let's go for that's about right there. And then let's see, it's 3 foot 1 inches to the longest point to the outside before it angles in a little bit. So 3'1". Let's go draw this out. So that's 3 foot. And again, you just have to be within a 1/16 of an inch. So I'm just going to smidge over that line. Just be as precise as I can. And then I didn't feel like I needed to take another measurement. So I'm just going to go and draw this diagonal line there. And that's where my pantry is. Now, obviously, I didn't draw this thing to scale because my refrigerator is not that tiny. My refrigerator is a typical 32-inch wide refrigerator. And what you can do with that is there is a refridge thing there. And my refrigerator is actually deeper than 24 inches. And so what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to go, and my refrigerator is actually the size of this whole big square. Now, if you have like a slim fridge, that's what this little thing's for. I'm not sure how well you can see it, but there's little tick marks at 24 inches and then beyond for other size refrigerators. And in your packet as well, I am going to show you some stuff that's in here. If you haven't gotten to BPP 2 yet, that's fine. I'm just going to show this to you. Is I do have a general key here, so you can use this to kind of indicate, you know, what things should look like or those type of things. I'll accept this template, you know, but in terms of your symbols. But I also am going to show you how to draw everything with the architectural template because that'll be useful as we go through. But normally when we have a refrigerator, like if this is the viewpoint in which you're looking at it, you would go and then refer to this as REF, for refrigerator. All right, that's a pretty common symbol that's used for describing these. So with that, as I probably didn't indicate super well on there, there is another cabinet there that is 18 inches wide. So that's a 2-foot deep cabinet. And it's 18 inches wide, so that means it's 1/4, so 3/8 of an inch. That's our 18-inch countertop. And if you really want to call it a drain board, you can. So we'll just go countertop. I'll label this as my pantry because that's what it is, at least in our house. And now really the only other thing I have to indicate here going through this example is things like my openings to the dining room and my doors. And then I'll go to the windows and then we'll talk about the walls. All right, so there's a few components here. And again, if you want to do a bathroom's probably a faster example because it's a smaller space, but I wanted to show you a kitchen just to indicate all the different features of the template here. So one of the things I'm going to point out here is that with openings, typically what I'm going to do is that, you know, from the interior wall to where my opening starts, I wrote 16 inches. On my room, obviously your room's different. Don't copy mine. Your kitchen should not look exactly the same as mine. Your kitchen's probably easier than my kitchen. My kitchen was just kind of weird, and then when I remodeled it, I made do with the space that I had because it's actually a pretty big room, so it gave me some flexibility. So if we go 12, 16 inches, that's 15, so that's 16. That's where the opening starts. It's a 32-inch opening, so that's 24 plus 6 is 30. And so that's where the opening ends. And then typically what I would do is I would then erase, because this is just a straight up opening into my dining room. And so then there are obviously walls here and those type of things. So this is just a rough opening. There is no door or anything there. And so I'm just going to leave that as is. I'll still go and draw the arrow here so that I can indicate these real world dimensions, this 15 foot 7 inches that's here. Now, my exterior door, the one that goes out to the porch of my house, we got 32 inches from this wall here. So that's what I measured with my tape measure. And then I have a 3-foot door. All right, and that's what I have there. Now, what I want you to do when you're using these doors is I want you to actually use your template to draw the doors once you know where they're located. And you see that we have these nice kind of half circle things. And exterior doors are going to be 3 foot, and then you'll have, smaller doors. This is the width of the actual door part, not the entire door itself, but 3 feet is your typical exterior door. And my door actually swings this way into the house. So typically what I do here when I'm looking at this template is you actually want to set where the swing of the door is here. And I'm actually going to overlap it a little bit. So where it is right here, I'm actually going to do it like this, because where this part is here, this is actually where the wall is. And I haven't drawn the wall yet. I maybe should have drawn the walls first, but we're going to do it in this order. And then this extra little bit on the inside here, I'm actually just going to erase that for now and just clean that up just a little bit. Now, let's do the pantry as well. So the pantry's got a 2 foot 4 inch door. I'm just gonna set it in just like that. Now be mindful of where the swing is. I made notes about the directionality of this. Right. And then I just erased that little bit that's on the inside part there. And just nicely drawn. So that gives you a nice, clear indication of the swing of the door. And those are all my doors that are there. Before I get to the windows, I'm actually going to talk about the walls a little bit, because if we draw out the walls, it makes things a little bit easier. And one of the things you're going to notice on your assignment is that it says to include thickness of walls. And so when you're drawing out a template like this, or a scale drawing, you want to draw it so that your interior walls are typically 4 inches and your exterior walls are 6 inches. And so what I'm actually going to show you here is, and draw it according to your blueprint. So I'll just point out, like, this wall is an exterior wall, so if you were able to walk through that wall, you'd be outside. That's the definition of an exterior wall. And so these 3 walls are exterior. And actually, the wall that I have here, most of it's interior here, but it's actually a support wall on my house. So sometimes support walls will be 6 inches. But I will show you an example of what 4-inch walls look like, because my pantry does have some 4-inch walls. So let's go and draw some of these out and show you what this looks like, so that you can kind of get an idea of the scale. So as we're looking at this, what I want to do is I want to actually go and draw 6-inch thick walls. Now, what's really nice about exterior walls is that 6 inches is literally 1/2 of these 1/4-inch squares, so it's an 1/8 inch thick. So all I ever do is I just take my ruler and I just kind of go, where is halfway? Halfway. Is that? Well, that's pretty close to halfway. I think that's halfway. Okay. Yeah. So that's about halfway right there. And so I'm going to go, and I always use a ruler when I do this. You can try it freehand. It's really tough to do freehand. I mean, it's really just not. And if you mess it up on the inside like that a little bit, don't worry. And actually, so that is not quite halfway, but that works because I'll just make sure I'm to the inside of that blue line. Again, remember, I'm always going to give you about a 1/16 of an inch of tolerance when we're looking at this. See, I got all that in place. So if you have an exterior wall or it's a support wall, okay, and if you're not sure if an interior wall is a support wall, go ahead and draw it as 4 inches. Most houses are not going to have extra really thick support walls. My house is just really old, so they did stuff like that, which is part of the reason why they last so long. So I'm just going to continue to draw these out. And so now I'm going to go. Oh, move just a little bit. And actually that looks pretty good. It doesn't look like I need to do any erasing. And so now this is my wall. And these are exterior walls. So you can kind of see what the thickness looks like. So this is always going to be 1/8 of an inch to represent. So 1/8 of an inch to represent the 6 inches in terms of the 1 to 48 scale that we're talking about here in terms of this particular assignment. So typically what I would do at this point is, now that I have, you know, all this stuff drawn in, is point out where my windows are. So I have 2 windows in this house, or in this room. I have one over here, and I have one over my kitchen. And so 4 feet inside, I have a window right here. And typically, this is 5 feet wide. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's the width of that window. And typically what I do is I'll actually include like the kind of flange piece here, the casing of the window. And then if you have a window like this, generally I'm also going to include dimensions. I'll just talk about that now, but typically what is done is if this is a 5-foot wide window, I go 5 and I do almost like a subscript 0. That represents the width in feet, and then the width in inches. And then if it's 3 feet tall, I would go 3, 0, and this would be the height. Is 3 foot 0 inches. All right, and that is just how I would label that as I go through. The other window is 4 foot 6 inches from the wall. So it starts there. And this window is 32 inches wide. So 4 feet minus 3 inches. Again, you get 1/16 of an inch of tolerance. And I'm going to go and just draw this with the casing on it. You know, I'm just kind of estimating that a little bit. All right, in this window, it's 32 inches. So what that means is that it's 2 foot 8. So in this given example, I'll go 2 and a little 8. So this is the feet. And this is the inches in addition to the feet. And then the height is 44 inches. So that's 3 foot 8. So go 3 and 8. So don't confuse this with 28 by 38. This is 2 feet 8 inches, 3 feet 8 inches in terms of this window. And this is just a general convention that's used to indicate window height. And so now at this point, we are almost done with this drawing. So now what I'm going to do is actually fill in the walls, but not the windows. And so what that allows you to do is clearly see where the windows are when we're doing this. So and feel free to fast forward through this a little if this and again, if this is an interior, just normal 4-inch wall, go ahead and draw these as 4-inch walls. And actually, just to show you what some 4-inch walls look like, I'll show you the pantry here in a little bit because I haven't gotten to that quite yet. And obviously, if you choose to do a bathroom, galley kitchens, if you have a small galley kitchen, that actually is probably the fastest one to do because everything's just so linear and straight. And again, if you use a ruler and you really get those outside lines bolded, then it's literally just drawing and shading, which makes this whole process way nicer as you're going through. All right. And so these are your exterior walls. Now your interior walls, I'll show you on the pantry. So these walls are interior walls. Interior walls are only 4 inches thick. And one thing, again, I tell you, you get about 1/16 of an inch of tolerance, at least in my class, in terms of drawing out these dimensions. But you want to be careful to make sure that your exterior walls don't look exactly the same as your interior walls. So if an 1/8 inch is equal to 6 inches, approximately 3/32 of an inch equals 4 inches. in the real world? Well, what's 3/32? I mean, I already told you have a 1/16 of an inch, which is 2/32. But try to make it so that your exterior walls don't look the same as your interior. All right. And so how I actually estimate this is that this should be a third of one of these squares, right? Because if a square is 12 inches by 12 inches, a third is probably going to look something like that. If I go all the way, that's obviously 6. That's too much. But that would be a third. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually use the ruler on this side. And again, I'll draw this over to here. Right, this is relatively detailed work. All right, and that's what a interior wall will look like. And the main thing with this assignment is just to kind of have a nice example to kind of start poking along with to get used to how to do some of this drawing. So what you'll find with these assignments is that, I don't think anything that we do is necessarily super complicated. It's just like anything worth doing. It just takes a little bit of time to actually draw this out. And then, and this is something you actually could very realistically use in your life. Like if you ever want to, do a remodel where you're actually adding a lot of stuff, or you want to build a new addition to your house and you need to file for permits, is they want stuff to this level of detail to indicate everything that you're doing to your space. And so with this all in place, I am just going to look at my homework assignment and make sure that I did everything. So I measured a room in a home, kitchen, or full bathroom, made a 1/4 inch drawing, scale drawing of the floor plan on 1/4 inch graph paper. In your drawing, make sure to write down the real world dimensions of a room. Okay, that's the 15'7" and the 13'1", just so I can check your scale and make sure you're off to a good start there. All right, and include thickness of walls 4 inches for interior and 6 inches for exterior. Okay, 6 inches for exterior. All right, now if you don't know whether it's 6 inches or not and it's interior, just draw it as 4 inches. Okay, so that's an example of a 4-inch wall. A 6-inch wall should look a little bit different. Your drawing should include both, just simply because if you are doing a bathroom, all right, you're not going to have a bathroom like all by itself. Like at least one of the walls, if not 3 of the walls, are going to be interior, and one of them is most likely going to be exterior. All right, and let's see, and then make sure your name's on it. Hey, got my name on it. So make sure all those different components are there when you're doing this. Now, with all that said, I think this encompasses everything. I showed you the materials that you needed to do this assignment. I went through the directions, and I went through and showed you how I did my kitchen. So make sure to include all these things, and with that said, let's do some math.